Okay, so we actually ended up getting chapter 250 of Black Clover out this week, which was really surprising to me because of the fact that, as far as I was aware, we were still continuing on with the whole bi-weekly scheduling, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me as why we would do that for one issue of Shonen Jump and then go back to the normal scheduling the following one. I mean, the whole reason why they did this whole bi-weekly scheduling for that issue was so they can take the precautions to make sure that basically everyone stays safe and healthy. Basically, they were slowing down production in order to not completely halt it. And it's actually a strategy that I wish the comic book industry over here in America would have adapted to, because if you've been paying attention to them, you know that for a while now, since this whole COVID-19 thing started, they actually stopped production all completely. Now, recently, DC Comics has been going back to production, doing digital comics. They're slowly starting to roll out more and more comics. And I know it wasn't really their idea to stop completely, but still, it doesn't take away from the fact that they did stop completely. And I did like the idea that, instead of doing that, Shonen Jump decided, all right, we're going to do a bi-weekly thing, make sure our writers and artists are basically staying healthy, not having to gather around in large groups with their assistants, and basically making sure all the precautions are taken so everyone can stay healthy so we can keep on bringing out new issues of Shonen Jump. So, with that mindset in mind, why would they only do that for one weekly release of Shonen Jump? Especially when you take into account that Oda, the writer of One Piece, just announced that he actually will be taking more frequent breaks when it comes to releasing One Piece in order to basically prevent him and his staff from being affected by this whole COVID-19 thing, make sure everyone stays healthy. Now, that being said, I actually am happy we got chapter 250 this week instead of having to wait until next week to get it, and there's two reasons for that. First off, because of the fact that a lot of people online have been complaining ever since the last chapter. In fact, I would argue even the chapter before that they're not really liking what's going on in the Heart Kingdom right now with the storyline that the bot is giving us. And that's because of the fact that there was so much hype built up between the fight between Asta and Dante, and then moving on to the fight between Dante and Yami, and then the big reveal at the end of the last chapter we got for that. And then we took a hard cut from all of that and moved over to the Heart Kingdom. In fact, I even complained about this myself a little bit. And basically, one thing people complained about online a lot is, one, we've been building up basically the Heart Kingdom Spirit Guardians as being basically the equivalent of Magic Knight Captains over in the Heart Kingdom. And for them to be taken out off panel is something that a lot of people have been really upset about. And then on top of that, the fights have been kind of lackluster in a lot of people's eyes, especially when it comes to these Dark Disciples or Dark Apostles, whatever you want to call them, because they really haven't been anything to talk home about, and they've been taken out each in one chapter. Now, given, Luck's opponent was taken out technically in two chapters, but still, they were still taken out pretty easily. So they've been kind of underwhelming, to say the least. I feel like with the way this chapter went, if we had waited 2 weeks for it, it would have basically just hyped up this, disappointment even more, and people would have been complaining more online about it. But because of the fact that we didn't have to wait 2 weeks, we only had to wait one, I feel like people are going to be less upset about it, because that means we should be getting through these Dark Disciple fights pretty quickly and moving on to the main part of this whole Heart Kingdom storyline, which would be the fight between Nero, Mimosa, Noel, and Gaja facing off against Vanica and Megikulo. Okay, so the chapter starts off and we see Charmy flying back to what looks like the same part of the forest where we saw her gorging herself on food for the first time post the time skip. And I gotta admit, it's really cute kind of seeing Charmy in her fat, pudgy form flying off in the battle. In fact, realistically, it's kind of cute seeing Charmy do really anything in the series in her human form. She's basically kind of in her human form become the unofficial mascot for Black Clover at this point. I mean, realistically, it should be Nero in her bird form who's kind of the mascot, but we can all kind of admit that Charmy is really the mascot of the series at this point. But anyway, we see her flying off in the battle, and seeing her on her, sheep or whatever she's on, her wool, whatever, flying off in the battle kind of reminded me of, Goku from Dragon Ball riding the Nimbus into battle and doing everything before he could fly. But anyway, as soon as we get there, we see the fact that the Spirit Guardian who trained her and Real Petrov, I'm not exactly sure that's how you pronounce his name, but that's what I'm going with right now until we get into the anime. But anyway, we see that he's been taken out to fight. He's not unconscious, unlike Fogo was in the last chapter, but it's pretty obvious that he can't fight anymore. And we end up seeing the Dark Apostle that he fought against, and while this character actually is very beautiful, Tabata does a great job of drawing her as a very beautiful woman. That's pretty much all she cares about, is just being recognized as the most beautiful woman in the world. And she really reminds me of that character Yuno fought earlier on in the series. I think it was back when the Diamond Kingdom was invading the capital for the first time. Or not the capital, one of the bordering towns on the border between the Diamond Kingdom and the Clover Kingdom. But do you remember that like which character that fought early on, and she was all about being the most beautiful person in the world, despite the fact, if I remember correctly, she was actually very old and kind of ugly looking once he ended up defeating her. And on top of that, not only does she remind me of that, but when it comes to her magic being basically hair magic, she also reminds me of the character that Chopper had to fight in One Piece back during that arc when they were going up against the CP0 when they were trying to save Robin. Because if I remember correctly, that guy also uses hair abilities. Now, ultimately, the fight between Charmy and this Dark Disciple, basically the fight between them, even though it ultimately ended up being kind of bland, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to complain about that, Tabata does something actually very interesting in the beginning of this fight. And as once Charmy summons her giant sheep, like we saw her do, again, from her introduction post time skip in the Heart Kingdom, we see the fact that the two of them attack each other with their magic, and they kind of just pass right through each other. Like, the hair magic can't affect Charmy's cotton magic at all, and Charmy's cotton magic can't do anything against her opponent's hair magic. But the Dark Apostle actually ends up getting the advantage a little bit in the fight because of the fact that while their attacks can't affect each other's magic, their attacks can still affect their physical bodies, and when it comes down to it, the Dark Apostle's hair magic can protect her body fully, while Charmy's cotton magic won't really do anything to protect her from her attacks. So just kind of like how Gaara, when him and Sasuke were fighting, created a like sand barrier around himself in order to keep Sasuke from attacking him, we see this Dark Disciple do the same thing with her hair magic, basically creates a cocoon around herself and then uses her hair magic to attack Charmy. And since Charmy can't defend against it because the hair goes right through her cotton, she ends up taking a few hits from it. Now, before the chapter actually came out, I did actually see a few panels of it online, and one of the panels I actually got to see were of the Dark Disciple that Charmy's going against, and at the time I didn't know Charmy was the opponent because we didn't get a panel at the time of who she was fighting off against. But one of the panels I did get to see was of the Dark Disciple injected some kind of liquid inside her neck. And my first thought when I saw that was, oh, that's cool. We're going to be introducing some kind of like artificial drug that the Spade Kingdom came up with to boost her magical abilities so that she can have even more of an advantage over her opponent. That's interesting. Maybe we can work something into basically maybe that's what all the Dark Disciples did against their opponent, and that's how they defeated each of the Spirit Guardians. But once the chapter was out, it actually ended up being that wasn't some kind of like, magic enhancing drug. It was basically just a nutrient supplement. Like, basically, the whole reason why she took that injection was because of the fact that this, Dark Disciple is all about beauty, and she sees eating as something that's not beautiful, so instead of actually eating herself, she just takes nutrients and directly injects it into her body. And I think we're all pretty much smart enough to understand exactly what the bot's doing here with basically having that liquid be a supplement for nutrients instead of being some kind of like power-enhancing drug. Basically, he's making reference to, all those people who try to hold their beauty to unnatural standards and doing, kind of unhealthy things to keep that beauty, like injecting yourself with liquids instead of physically eating. I'm not going to go into a whole thing about it. We can all pretty much understand exactly what Tabata is referencing with this character, and I'm just going to leave it at that. Now, because of the fact that her con magic isn't doing anything for her in this fight, Charmy transforms into her dwarf form, which actually does allow her to walk away with the win. But I gotta admit, despite how kind of cool the ending of this fight was, I was a little bit disappointed with the fact that she ended up transforming this early on in the arc into her dwarf form. And the reason why I was disappointed is because I feel like this was kind of too early for her to show that form just yet. I mean, we're still very early on in this war against the Spade Kingdom, and this is only her first opponent post a time skip, so I was kind of hoping that we'd hold off on that. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, despite how upset people have been with the way Tabata is presenting this whole storyline with the Heart Kingdom and it being invaded by Vanica and her Dark Disciples, the reason why each of these characters are fighting these Dark Disciples is kind of to basically put an understanding of where they are power level wise post a time skip. Because we already know that since these Dark Disciples that they're going up against, we see them already in their dark demonic forms, we know that they can use at least 55% of demonic power. So by having the Clover Kingdom crew who trained in the Heart Kingdom defeat each one of them, we get an understanding of, okay, each one of these people are at the very least able to defeat someone who can use 55% of demonic power. Just like how Tabata had Yuno and the rest of the Going Dawn go up against Zeno and the two Dark Disciples that he brought with him, and as a way to show us basically mostly Yuno, but really everyone in the Golden Dawn's power levels post the time skip. He's doing the same thing over here in the Heart Kingdom with Luck, Leo, Charmy, Rio, and everyone else who's over there right now. They're basically saying, alright, each of the Dark Disciples they go up against is at 55% of demonic power. They can use the dark form. They've been defeated by these characters, so that puts these characters at this power level right now. Basically, that's all this fight's supposed to be, just kind of giving us an idea of where these characters are power level wise as right now. It's not supposed to be a serious fight. They're not supposed to be going all out. They're not supposed to be risking being defeated. It's just supposed to be a fight to show us where each character is power level wise post the time skip. And that's why I didn't want to see Charmy transform into this dwarf form just yet, because I was hoping we would actually say that for later on in the arc when she has a more serious fight, not one that's basically just here to set up where she is power level wise, but one where she's actually going up against a more threatening opponent. Now, that being said, even though I did say it's a little too early for Charmy to have transformed into her dwarf form, I gotta admit, after she transformed, that's when the fight got a little bit funny and silly. Okay, so we have Lux's fight done, we have Leo's fight done, and now with this new chapter, we have Charmy's fight done as well. Which means there's 2 more fights left before we get to the whole Vanica going up against Noelle, Mimosa, Gaja, and Nero. And yes, there are actually 2 more fights left because as I was corrected in the comment section of my last review, and by, taking for myself in the chapter where we actually get to see Vanica basically introducing herself to Invaded Heart Kingdom, she did actually bring 5 Dark Apostles with her, which means that we do have 2 more fights. Now, we know that the next chapter's fight is most likely going to end up being Real going up against his Dark Apostle opponent. So that's taken care of. But we still don't know who that 5th fight's going to be with. Now, I've been an advocate for a while now that if there is going to be a 5th fight, or even if there wasn't, I was hoping that at some point in this Heart Kingdom arc, we would end up seeing Charlotte fight off against one of the Dark Apostles. And that's because of the fact that I'm actually really excited to see what her new design looks like post the time skip, and what her new abilities are after learning how to use the runes in the arrays. But while I was getting myself excited about the fact that Charlotte might end up being the 5th person to fight off against the Dark Apostle before we get to the main fight, I kind of came to a realization that there's one other character that could potentially be over in the Heart Kingdom right now, especially if Charlotte did go over there to train. And that's obviously Soul, the character who kind of follows Charlotte around like a lost puppy. She obviously, if Charlotte went over there to train, she would have went with her, not missing the beat to, basically train alongside the person she admires the most. And you know what, the more I think about it, the more I'm okay with the idea of Soul being the one to fight off against the last Dark Apostle instead of Charlotte. Because 1, I think it'd actually be a better idea to save Charlotte for a more serious fight and a more serious opponent. And 2, when you think back to the last arc, Soul didn't really do anything with the war against the elves, and she definitely didn't do anything with the fight against the demon. So it actually would be fair to give her a bit of spotlight in this fight by having her go up against one of the Dark Apostles and kind of showing off how much of a badass she's kind of been or kind of became from training in the Heart Kingdom and learning how to use the runes and everything. So I think actually it would be better to give Soul this fight so she can get her due, at least at this part of the arc, and then later on focus on Charlotte in a more serious capacity. And you know what, I guess you could say the same thing for Real. It probably would be better to save him for a fight against a more serious opponent since he actually is a Magic Knight captain. But since Real is around the same age as Asta and the rest of them, I kind of feel like he fits more with them and their struggles than he does with the Magic Knight captain struggles. But I guess if Tabata did decide to leave Real out of this fight, my replacement for him would most likely either be Kirsch or for Gil. Because I feel like since they both also have nature magic, it would benefit from them to train in the Heart Kingdom. And plus, the 2 of them are they're not recurring characters, but when it comes to their squads, they are the most used characters outside of their captains. So it would make a lot of sense for them to be over here because they are more of the supporting main cast, I guess. But yeah, I'm still kind of rooting for the idea that it's going to be Real in the next chapter. But let me know in the comment section down below. If Real doesn't end up fighting, who would you replace him with? But anyway, guys, that's pretty much going to do it for me for this video. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, drop me a like, subscribe to the channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. And comment down below what you thought about this chapter. Let me know what you thought about the chapter, about the fight. Because me personally, I gotta admit, I thought it was kind of a snooze. But then again, like I said, these fights aren't really supposed to be that exciting or that important. They're basically just here to kind of set up exactly where these characters are power level wise post the time skip. So I can let it go with the fact that they're not all that exciting, all that impressive. But let me know in the comment section down below what you feel about the fight and what you feel about the chapter overall. But that's going to do it for me, guys. Thanks for watching. And I'll catch you guys next week, I guess. Peace.